Thank you for using Engines of Mischief. This video is the third in a three-part series intended to help instructors understand the game. It is a further explanation of the accounting that students must do in the marketplace section of the game. More information about the game and about everything in these videos can be found in the instructor's manual on the Reacting to the Past Consortium website. Don't forget that Engines of Mischief is different from other Reacting to the Past games because there are two essential parts of it. There's Town Hall, where laws are passed, and it's very much like other games. Speeches are delivered, debates are held, votes are taken. Marketplace is slightly different. This is where players make economic transactions, they conduct business to make money, but they also take collective action. A previous video explained how players filled out their two worksheets to track their income and what this did to their class status. These worksheets include a Make Money worksheet for different professions that tracks how much money each player is making, and then there is a Determine Lifestyle and Class Status for the three classes, the working, middle, and upper classes, that track how the income that is made in Marketplace changes or doesn't change a player's class status. Again, there are videos for how to fill out these worksheets that you can find the links to on the Reacting to the Past Consortium website. This video is for instructors to make sure they're aware of how the worksheets are used to model the economic consequences of laws that players may pass in Town Hall. In other words, players may pass laws in Town Hall that then have an effect in Marketplace and may change the class status or the lifestyle of the various players. There are three laws that are most important that may change what happens in Marketplace: the repeal of the Corn Laws, the abolition of indirect taxes, and the return of the 1816 income tax. So I will go over briefly how the instructor should tell students that these laws will change their economic standing. First, we'll talk about taxes. In the core text section of the game book are contemporary accounts of the economic consequences of changes to laws about taxes and the Corn Laws. This account, which again can be found in the core texts, says that the total taxes per year of workers, so in our game this would be weavers and spinsters, half of this income is taken by taxes. So at the very least, half of his income is abstracted from him by taxation. These include taxes that are indirect taxes on goods, on consumer goods, that are necessities, but they're also taxes on the price of corn from the Corn Laws, which raises the price of bread, which is why this account says that he will eating, drinking, or sleeping in some other way be taxed. So in the game, if indirect taxes are abolished or Corn Laws are repealed, the cost of necessities will go down for the working class. So this is modeled on the worksheets. So for example, here is spinster Mary Cannon making just 10 shillings the first session. And she is paying 10 shillings in necessities, so she ends up with nothing. But if the Corn Laws are repealed or indirect taxes are repealed, their consequences are indicated at the bottom of the worksheet. So you can see the pictures on the right show, how little she has, and partially this is because of the taxes. So it says at the bottom, if Corn Laws are repealed, food prices are reduced for the various levels. If indirect taxes are abolished, the cost of wardrobe and household items and of shelter is reduced 50%. Indirect taxes were often on things like bricks, clothing, candles. These are things that made wardrobe, household items, and shelter more expensive. the Corn Laws made bread more expensive, and bread, as you could see in this pictures on the right column, bread was one of the largest parts of the food source of the working classes. So if these taxes are repealed, the necessities of the working classes go down. So let's see what happens to spinster Mary Cannon if the Corn Laws are repealed. So she has 10 shillings in income, no savings, a total income of 10 shillings. But if the Corn Laws are repealed, the cost of food is reduced from 6 shillings to 3 shillings, which reduces her necessities from 10 shillings to 7 shillings, and she ends up with a savings of 3 shillings. Now, she can't buy any luxuries because she needs, she can buy luxuries, but she can't get any status points for luxuries because she needs to buy 4 shillings of luxuries to get 1 status points, but she does have savings. So again, she has to spend 4 shillings to get 1 status point. She only has 3 shillings, but she does have some savings. But what happens if she gets a raise? Say she gets a 1 shilling raise and goes up from 10 shillings to 11 shillings. Now let's see what happens to her. She has a savings of 3 shillings from the previous session, so if this is the next session, she has an income of 14 shillings. She's only paying 7 shillings in necessities, and now she has a savings of 7 shillings. She can spend 4 shillings on luxuries. She can earn a status point. So that should indicate that the repeal of the Corn Laws, plus just a small increase in a wage, could really significantly change her lifestyle. And she could have the same status as a merchant or even an aristocrat could. So what would happen if both the Corn Laws and indirect taxes were repealed would be even better. So let's say she's still just making her 10 shillings. If both of them were repealed, she would pay 3 shillings in food, 1 shilling in wardrobe and household items, and 1 shilling in shelter, meaning her necessities are 5 shillings, and she has a savings of 5 shillings. And again, she can buy 4 shillings of luxuries and get that 1 status point, and still have a savings of 1 shilling. So repealing the Corn Laws and indirect taxes are very important for the lower classes. But the repeal of the Corn Laws is not very good at the other end of the social scale for the aristocrats. And here again is from the court texts in the game book. And this contemporary account says that if there is no Corn Law, the revenues of landlords, in other words, our aristocrat, will be diminished by 1/2. So in the game, this is modeled by the fact that if the Corn Laws are repealed, the weekly rent collected per plot of agricultural land is reduced in half. So the market conditions board will change from 1,000 shillings per week for rent of agricultural land to 500 shillings. This has quite a serious effect on our aristocrats. For example, the Earl of Derby. Instead of 1,000 shillings per plot of land, he's only going to get 500. He still has 20 plots of land, but he's only getting 500 shillings in rent, so his total rent is 10,000 shillings. He still has 10,000 shillings in savings, but that's not particularly good. That's half of his income gone. And when he fills out his lifestyle and status worksheet, he finds that his total income is 20,000 shillings, but his necessities are 20,000 shillings. So he ends with nothing. He ends with no savings and no status points. So repealing the Corn Laws has a very, very serious effect on him, which is why in historical reality, the aristocrats really resisted repealing the Corn Laws. It took them until 1846 to do that, and the game is set in 1817. Income tax is a little bit different for aristocrats. They certainly didn't want to pay income tax. The income tax was repealed in 1816. But if they decide to reintroduce it, what that means is that they will have to pay, the British subjects will have to pay 10% of their income on this income tax. It was a graduated tax, and that's modeled in the game as well. people in the middle classes paid less in income tax, and people in the lower taxes didn't pay anything. It was abolished in 1816, but it could be brought back. So in the game, if it is brought back, those players with an income of 150 shillings or more pay 10% of their income in the tax. Those with 50 to 150 shillings pay 5%, and those under 50 shillings don't pay anything if it's brought back. So here's what happens to the Earl of Derby if the income tax is brought back. His income is 20,000 shillings from land, so he would have to pay 2,000 shillings, 10% of that, and he would put that in tax poor rate increases in his money spent column. What this means is he ends up with 18,000 shillings. Does this affect him seriously? A little bit, but not as much as the repeal of the Corn Laws. He still has 8,000 shillings in savings, and he still can get 2 status points by buying 7,000 shillings of luxuries with a savings of 1,000 shillings. So the game master could tell the players all of these consequences of repealing the Corn Law, returning the income tax, or they could let the players figure that out on their own. Everything that was covered in this PowerPoint is described in much more detail in the instructor's manual, which can be found on the Reacting Consortium website. If you have any questions, feel free to contact Louise Williams at this email address. And again, thank you for using Engines of Mischief.